How do you think, or how, from your perspective, how did that kind of remote work culture change as a result of the pandemic? What was the biggest change?
The biggest change, David, was it was really a proof of concept of how many work positions could be continued in a remote capacity. A lot of people have said to me, they've said things like, are there businesses that aren't conducive to remote work or distributed work? And I always tell people that's actually, you're not asking the right question. The right question is, what's your business model and what are you trying to accomplish? And then you should think of remote work and distributed work as a business strategy. One of the things that's happening globally at this point is there's a big backlash because now you have senior leaders saying people have to come back in the office right at the moment where we've proved without the shadow of a doubt that we can have productivity without a nasty commute, at the point where not only are we going back into long commutes, but we're doing it at a premium price because of global gas prices and things like that. And it's a little insulting for folks who are working because they're saying, so you're telling me you don't trust me now and I have to come back into an office because you don't believe that I can work productively, but for the last 2.5 years, I kept your business running and not only did my job, but did it well. So I think there's a disconnect and a divide, but I think there's also a big pushback from a workforce that says, I kind of like picking up my child from the bus or taking my dog for a walk, and I don't see a problem with that. I'll tell you that I have lots and lots of contact with groups that are being forced back into the office, and ironically, ask them what their meeting protocol is. How many are actually showing up in a conference room for a meeting, or how many are staying in their office and just coming in virtually? And I'll tell you that there are a lot of people who are just staying in their office in their building, their company's building, and still not interacting with people in a physical way. They were doing a major system rollout, technical rollout. And we did it with folks who were completely virtual, who had no experience in doing this sort of thing. We did all the training live stream. We actually did this at the beginning of the pandemic, just before the lockdown, but we had put the infrastructure in place. We'd worked with the team. We'd done the professional development. We had good executive sponsorship, and the rollout went without a hitch. And it wasn't me that did the rollout. It was the team that did the rollout because they were enabled to be able to do that. And so I've seen the productivity gains when somebody is feeling that sort of self-confidence to be able to really operate to the top of their capabilities. It's going to have its variability. So you plan for what you can, you prep people for what you can't, and you tackle it as a team. I call it lazy leadership. Lazy leadership is either we're going to try command and control, do it or else, which wasn't effective in the office and only got you short-term compliance anyway. And it's fear-driven, which means that's not going to be a good motivator, and it's not a good formula for productivity over the long term. But then you've got the second piece, which is a well-meaning person who got promoted because they were a great doer, but they transitioned to leadership and they maintained themselves as a doer as opposed to a leader who is enabling their people to be self-sufficient. And so their identity and how they evaluate themselves is going to be based on, you come to me with your problem, I'll solve your problem, or I'll jump in and do it myself. And in that format, in a remote and a distributed team, it's unsustainable because people are people and people are messy. And when you bring people together, I don't care if it is in an office setting, And I would argue that when you bring people together in close proximity and then you add a stressful environment, or you add, maybe if your company is not doing that well, there's that stress. If your company's doing really well and is growing by leaps and bounds, another kind of stress. And those stresses start impacting people's behavior. And when you're in close proximity, who's managing that? How are we moderating that? What kind of, and also how many companies actually sit down and say, this is the kind of culture we want to build, and then role model those behaviors? And there are lots of people with lots of value statements on the walls. And I've seen a lot of companies with those value statements probably every single day, every single minute, violate their own values on a routine basis. So
yeah, well, I think the answer to the question is not enough companies are consciously thinking about those things.
Right.
No, you're right though. It is, at the end of the day, it's about the people, isn't it? And I'm sure a lot of people just like me, the enduring memories of the positives and the what you're enjoying about your work. It was about the people that you're interacting with, the people that you were working with. It wasn't about the place you were doing it. It wasn't about the company you were working for even necessarily. It was just about those personalities, the people you saw every day that you didn't hate or not get on with or whatever. There's always one or two of those everywhere. Maybe I'm the problem, but
I mean, I think we all have to own it, right? Because we all have good days and bad days. And quite frankly, we probably annoy someone.